who is going to be the final villain for Luffy to face in One Piece? A lot of people probably think Blackbeard. Some might think Emu. Some might even think Akainu. I'm going to talk about who I think is going to be the final villains, and we're going to consider each one. Stick around for the end because I have a surprise one that I don't think a lot of people are going to guess. So the first person I think most people think of when they think of the final boss for Luffy is Blackbeard. In a lot of ways, Blackbeard parallels Luffy, whereas Luffy's the sun god, Blackbeard is all about darkness. He has the darkness fruit. He, in a lot of ways, makes sense as a final villain for Luffy. But something that I suggested is that he's a D. That means he's part of the same clan as Luffy. So I could see a ending where Blackbeard ends up fighting along with Luffy against the world government, which would be Emu. Now, there's a lot of issues between Blackbeard and Luffy that they would have to get over. But if anybody can get over it, I think it's Luffy. Luffy definitely has tons of grace, and we've seen him have the ability to work with people that have tried to take him out in the past. Crocodile being a perfect example. Buggy being a great example. Bon Clay being another example. So it's not like we've never seen Luffy work with people that he had problems with. But I think most people think that Blackbeard is going to be the main villain that Luffy has to win. I don't think so. I actually think that he's going to team up with Blackbeard. Which brings me to the second choice, Emu. So we don't know a ton about Emu. I mean, we know that she is the head of the world government. She is the one behind a lot of bad, but we don't know exactly her backstory. We're starting to get more and more hints about who she could be or where she could come from, but it's hard to say. Personally, I feel like that's going to be the final boss, but we're going to still learn. Another option is Akainu. I just don't feel the Marines are the top of the whole thing. You know what I mean? I don't see him beating Akainu, which I do think he will be the one who beats him. And that's mostly because of Ace. Although I could also see Sabo being the one that fights him and beats him. That makes a lot of sense too. Him having Ace's will and all. Rocks, that's been suggested. Aside from knowing that Rocks is really strong, we don't really know. In fact, I have a hard time even believing that he's still alive. It's possible. With Oda, anything is possible, but I'm just not seeing that. It'd have to be some very, very deep tie, and maybe if he had some kind of tie-in to the Void Century, it would make sense. But aside from that, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to have Rocks be the final villain. And lastly, my last surprise pick is Shanks. It's been said that Shanks is really a bad guy, and that he really is not for Luffy, and he's setting Luffy up for kind of like how Aizen did Ichigo, So those are all the people I think. Out of those people, I think what makes the most sense is for Emu to be the final person. We don't know anything about her abilities though, so that kind of makes it hard to imagine. But I would say Emu's most likely, followed by Blackbeard, followed by Akainu, followed by Rocks, and then hey, you never know, it could be Shanks.